As I watched those clean-cut American youths acknowledging victory or defeat with the same modest smile, I knew that they came from a quiet, sportsmanlike people. When I saw the silent and magnificent efforts of their runners and their jumpers, I knew that they came from a people that loved action and abhorred palaver. When I saw the young Americans soar like birds over the bars and the hurdles, I said to myself that this is the way every American surmounts the obstacles in his path. When I saw on the list of contenders names like Schultz and Legendre, I understood that I was dealing with a people utterly ignorant of the debasing sentiment of racialism and sectionalism. When I saw the swiftness and certainty with which the young Americans met every emergency as it arose, I said to myself that this is a people who would take orders from no one. When I saw the splendid devotion of each athlete to the single cause of his country's victory, I knew that this was a people which sacrificed self to common good. These were the words of a columnist covering the 1924 Olympic Games in Paris. Welcome everyone to Half History Will Travel. I am your host, the Wilder Historian, and in this video we'll be diving into the 1920s when sports and athleticism was beginning to be heavily commercialized, but many saw the way for people to embrace their Americanness was to engage in athletic competition. The late 1800s, also called the Gilded Age, saw the rise of big business and the trampling of workers' rights. Economic reform became a main initiative of the Progressives or the Progressive Movement. Quoting from the Encyclopedia Britannica, the movement's goals involved strengthening the national government and addressing people's economic, social, and political demands. Progressives saw elements of American society that they wished to reform, especially ending the extreme concentration of wealth among the elite and the enormous economic and political power of big business. But it wasn't only big business that the Progressives wanted to confront, it was also the problems of immigration. How could they instill Americanness into these newly arriving people to the United States? One of the most famous American historians, Frederick Jackson Turner, put forward his frontier thesis, where he postulated that the way democratic ideals and that Americanness that coursed through each person's veins came from the frontier. Although the frontier could be seen as an actual place, Turner saw it as a process by which Europeans became Americans, instilling in them the ideas of small r republicanism and democracy, self-reliance, and independence. However, in 1890, the United States Census declared there to be no more frontier. This concerned people like Turner, who saw that as a death sentence for democracy because the act of settling the frontier created Americans. This mentality evolved and gave rise to progressives and men like Theodore Roosevelt, who advocated for a strenuous life and athleticism. They believed that Americans were becoming too soft, working behind desks endlessly with no experience with the outdoors or strenuous life. Theodore Roosevelt epitomized in the popularized versions of his doctrine of the strenuous life the American belief in athleticism as a necessary ingredient of modern nationhood. Roosevelt preached that the playing field provided the new age with a forum for moral education, an arena for building character, and a vital testing ground of national will. Athleticism would partially take the place of the frontier as a way to create Americans. Roosevelt succinctly identified the central premise of the Progressive Athletic Code when he proclaimed that athletic sports are a means and not an end, and he who puts them out of their proper place and diverts them from their proper and wholesome purpose is their enemy. There was some debate in progressive circles over just what kind of exercises and sports should constitute athleticism, but there was general agreement on the role that sports should play in society. Roosevelt and Dudley Sargent, Harvard's pioneering physical educator, certainly disagreed over which games compromised athleticism, and in what spirit those games should be undertaken, but they both insisted that sport was a means and not an end, a preparation for life, but not life's purpose. Athleticism was supposed to produce good citizens and able leaders, inculcate liberal tenets, and convert immigrants into Americans. Progressives believed that modern sport, political reform, and rational social action could be used to construct a harmonious national culture. However, these ideas about using athleticism and sports as a way to reform society and politics hit a large stumbling block: commercialism. The progressives had lost considerable power by the 1920s, and the rise of sports as entertainment derailed their initiatives. According to progressives, sports were to be played, not used as entertainment or become a spectator sport. In fact, commercialized sporting events counteracted the progressive movement. They claimed that entertainment from sports was an opiate for the masses that blinded them from the political reality surrounding them. Watching baseball, basketball, football, boxing, and tennis kept them from becoming politically involved. They claimed that Americans knew more names of professional athletes than politicians who actually influenced their lives. This became a great concern to them as more and more athletes gained national stardom, like the Sultan of Swat Babe Ruth and the hard-punching boxer Jack Dempsey. The rise of professional sports dashed the dreams of progressives to create a national culture that would help bring immigrants into the American fold and strengthen the body and mind of those individuals. Perhaps the harshest critic of American sporting habits in the 1920s, John R. Tunis, was himself a practicing sports writer. Tunis loved the beauty of informal athletic games and the escape from the daily grind which sport could provide. He thought that play was the true essence of modern sport. Tunis reveled in the existential moments in which one drove a golf ball well and truly, or executed a perfect ground stroke on the tennis court. All that is best in sport can be found, and what is more is found in these friendly encounters upon the golf links and tennis courts of the country, he wrote. But the rise of the highly organized spectacles, which garnered so much attention during the 1920s, bothered Tunis immensely. It wasn't only sports that was heavily commercialized and catering itself toward a consumer society. The entire country was rapidly expanding. Large factories created goods on mass scale. People didn't have to leave their homes to go shopping. They could order from a mail-order catalog and have it shipped to their home or local store. However, progressives did not have a problem with the mass production and commercialization of athletic equipment because it fostered the use of those instruments. Plus, the country had emerged from the First World War as very successful because the war had not destroyed it like it had European nations. The appearance in quick succession during the 20s of mass-produced and mass-marketed motor cars and home appliances, radio networks, a thriving motion picture industry, revolutionary advertising techniques, chain store empires, credit and installment purchase plans, and numerous other technological business innovations designed to spur consumer purchasing and produce the impression of the sudden birth of a new social order. The relentless pitching of professional sales agents who promised the members of mass society the ever-multiplying fruits of the machine process served as the battle cry of the consumer revolution. New technologies and new forms of production fundamentally altered society. Professional athletes and their popularity helped spur mass production of gimmicks that they sold or became spokespersons for. In this way, athletes helped change society, but took it into a far different direction than the progressives who saw sports as a useful tool, not as entertainment. But the consumer society which emerged in the 1920s was a fertile field for the growth of spectator sports. To be American did not result from being an athlete. To be an American came from being a consumer, and that change can be traced directly to the 1920s. Because this is not my field of study, I quoted heavily from Mark Dyerson's article, The Emergence of Consumer Culture and the Transformation of Physical Culture, American Sport in the 1920s. So if you want to know more, check out this article and also its bibliography for more on sports in the 1920s and the rise of professional athletes. Thank you all so much for watching. Please check out the Patreon page and Teespring store, as well as the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages for the channel. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.